Alrighty, hello, everybody. Hello, Nightbringer.
Good morning. Happy
All right.
Monday.
Good morning. Is it still the morning for you? It's definitely not Monday.
Yes, but it will be Monday when this comes out.
I mean, yeah.
See?
I can't argue
smart.
with that. Yeah. I can argue with that one, but I won't. But how have you been?
I'm doing all right. Doing all right. I
I
just watched a speed run where someone tried to hold their breath for. It was very stupid. They were going, and then they did a speed run immediately following, where they kept taking shots of alcohol. That can't be good for your brain. How are you?
Yeah, I'm alright. Just coming off stream. Did Forever Skies co-op. It was alright. Week's been alright. It's been kind of cold. I don't feel like a lot has happened this week, to be honest. It did yeah.
Wait, was it this last? I actually had some fun this week.
Oh.
I got to leave early Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday.
Oh.
Tuesday and Thursday were for doctor's appointments, but still.
Well, hopefully the appointments went well and everything is all right.
Yes, I mean, mental health. So yeah.
Okay. Oh, dear. Oh, that. Well, mental health is important to look after it. Get rid of the stigma around it.
That I am for.
But especially as we're getting into the quote unquote festive period. But let's not get there. This is meant to be a fun podcast where we talk about murder, she wrote. No.
I don't think I've in any of the 3 episodes have we actually seen her write anything down with pen and paper. Or at her, we did see typewriter at the very beginning of the previous episode.
There's been a little bit of typewriter, but no, most of it she just keeps in a steel trap of a memory, I believe.
Right.
Yeah.
Did you process that this episode was the kissing episode?
No.
There were like 6 or 7 scenes, close-ups of characters kissing, and at some point it was just peculiar.
Apparently George Clooney was in it.
What?
Which I don't think is correct at all.
If he was, it was a cameo in the actual club, and we didn't pay enough attention, but no.
No, I don't remember him being in it at all. But so I will say, so this episode 3. It's called Birds of a Feather, if I remember correctly. One, I meant to have this rant last week, but I didn't.
Do tell.
I hate when a TV show starts by showing you what's about to come in the TV show you're about to watch.
Yes.
It annoys the hell out of me. And I meant to bring it up last week, but
I'm rapidly considering skipping the intros because no.
Yeah, I don't, especially with a show like this where it's all about the mystery and working out what's happening. But yeah, no, I absolutely hate it. And I hate that Murder, She Wrote is clearly going to do it forever and a day now. But I think this one, like last week's, was very strange in its introduction to the mystery. You had the guy randomly turn up pretending to be a hobo. They were off on a boat. He didn't really know them. This one was very, I would say, standard. In that it's kind of set up all of the villains and all of the possible suspects within about, 2.5 minutes? Really, before Jessica Fletcher has even turned up.
Yeah, well, you do see... I don't think you see everyone that would be a potential suspect or villain, but you do see the key villain, which
I think so. You're probably right, because I don't think you see the wife, and I don't think you see
The drummer or
you
the
don't see
person who
the
controls the
you
drummer.
don't see the drummer, but his motive is definitely set up right
Yes.
at the start. And you don't see which to me, they do not do red herrings well. In my opinion. Sorry, it's a winter podcast. It's gonna be one of those days.
I have a hoodie.
I also have a hoodie, but yeah. It's also cold where I am. Well, relatively speaking. Yeah, I don't think they do red herrings well, but let's try and do a little bit of so whereas like last week I feel we had a lot to talk about with the actual plot of the episode because there was a lot that didn't make a lot of sense.
Right.
This one I thought was very generic and almost paint by numbers. Honestly.
I'm starting to wonder if I'm just an idiot.
I thought it was fairly obvious. Well, I thought it was obvious who they were setting up to die.
I just like seeing bad people die, so
I think that's fairly obvious. I think you were meant to be shocked by the fact that they go to this weird club where they have drag acts on the menu. But again, that was perfectly obvious that is what the fiance was doing. Well, at least I thought it was anyway.
Again, I start to wonder how much I am of an idiot.
But yeah, I thought it was an interesting start. They definitely wanted you to make sure that you knew it was in San Francisco.
Yes.
And I thought the double run-in with people as he was on his run was a little bit odd.
Yes.
Especially because it didn't make any point to the future of the episode. Like, if they were trying to set up that everybody knew he did this run and that's why they were waiting for him there, and that's kind of how he got murdered at some point, then I possibly could have forgiven it. But the fact that two people accost him at the car park where he ends his run, but one looking for money, one looking to get their client out of a contract. But clearly setting this guy up, I've forgotten his name completely.
The dead guy.
Clearly setting this guy up as the bad guy, and I think to be the murder victim.
If they're going to keep setting bad people up to be the victim of murder, I'm not going to complain.
Well, I think the problem is it became fairly obvious what two of the key points were going to be to me. One, who was going to be murdered, and two, who clearly couldn't be guilty, which was the tenuous link to Jessica Fletcher.
Right.
So now not only does she have a nephew, she's got a niece.
And a nephew-in-law.
Well, not yet. Oh, yes. Well, at the end, they did get married. That is true. But yeah, all of a sudden there's a niece. I mean, I guess that's a well they can go to as many times as they want because they haven't specifically said how many siblings she has and therefore how many nieces and nephews she may have.
So a dichotomy in this one was the first episode, we're introduced to a whole bunch of characters in her hometown that she knows. In this one, there's only one character that she starts off knowing, and that's her niece. So I did think that was interesting, but I also find it a little peculiar to have your first episode be a whole bunch of what I assume will be reoccurring characters throughout the show, and have the second episode have none of those characters. Well, I assume we're going to see Ethan.
Yes, but only if it's in Cabot Cove, right?
Yes, but why have we already left Cabot Cove?
Well, because it's a small Maine town. You can't have that many murders in Cabot Cove and it be realistic. Although in the UK, many years, well, Bergerac did it just based on Jersey. And was it Midsummer Murders? Did it very well. Small villages, everybody gets killed. But I think it is to move away from the fact that, Cabot Cove may have a serial killer, because if all of these murders take place, like the fact they all take place around Jessica Fletcher is suspicious enough.
I feel like that's the suspension of disbelief that you walk into any show like this with, though. NCIS.
100%. Well, no, but NCIS, their job is to investigate crime. So the fact that they're always involved in investigating crimes makes a lot of sense.
The level to which they're personally involved with.
Yes, and then with NCIS, the kind of hoops they have to jump to make sure that it's Navy related.
Exactly.
Is laughable as well, and they all get to that at a certain point.
It's just kind of required for.
But this is a and again we have no idea how much time has passed from the pilot when she first writes her first book is published to now, but she's already published 6 books and has a movie deal.
Yes, which actually
by this stage.
That also puts a lot of time between episode 1 and episode 2, because I think we only discussed 1 book and a preprint of the next, or maybe the third.
There was a preprint, but I don't think it was ever discussed
how many had been released.
Just that there was a new one coming out.
I would say that they would have mentioned the movie if there had been the movie in the first episode, but then again, I think we might be reaching too deep for.
I agree, but to me, it's amazing how quickly she's gone from starting as an author to 6 books and a movie deal, and really how little effect that has on the story. Although they did use it well this time. I will admit that, with how she basically blackmailed her way onto the case with the detective.
I think it worked quite well for also the beginning of them getting into the club. With most people wouldn't be like, "Do you know who my uncle is? He works at Nintendo." But it actually kind of made sense for her to push this one time and be like, "Hey, my aunt's actually really important, and we really want to be in here tonight."
And of course, she really wants to find out what's going on with her fiance, which is fair enough. But yeah, and then obviously they set them. I don't know what they were trying to set up with the club. I don't know if they were trying to make some social messages like around the time, or what. Like I said, there were 2 drag acts on at that club. It didn't seem to be a drag queen bar,
No.
or even a gay bar of any sort. It seemed to be more of like a variety / possibly burlesque. Not even really burlesque, just like a variety club. But they definitely try to make it sound seedy by how they're talking about it, how Jessica Fletcher and the niece are talking about it at their table. And with Jessica Fletcher thinking this, yeah.
As a high-class club, and with high-class and, the important people in San Francisco, you're going to expect some peculiarities.
I did not get high class from it at all.
And see, that's why I think it's high class. Is it's meant for the important people of that area to go to entertain peculiar things out of the public eye.
Oh, okay, yes. No, that kind of feeling I did get. Yes, that it was a kind of hole in the wall where you kind of got rid of your secret perversions. But that didn't really then fit in with how the club was shown for the rest of it. Like I feel they were trying to say something about the club, which didn't really make any difference to the story. And maybe it was again, this is in the 1980s. The fact that they showed 2 drag queens on telly, maybe that was scandalous. I don't know.
Between the drag queens, I swear, there was like 6 kissing scenes of close-up kissing. And for this type of show, episode 2, and with the drag, I was like, when did this come out, and how much did people feel about this? Because they definitely, like I say, I don't know if they were trying to push an agenda or what. It just, so much of it felt out of place. And I think that's kind of, this episode honestly felt like it was recorded
by 2 or possibly 3 different people. And then they try to put it together at the end. And I feel it didn't really fit. And again, so they're at the club. It's revealed shockingly that the fiance is working as a drag queen because he hasn't got any money. And it's revealed because you hear a scream. I believe, I couldn't decide if it was a security guard or a policeman who chased him down in the club when he went through Jessica and Lisa's table.
It was a cop, and I was dumbfounded. Why is a cop just immediately present?
Yes.
Because you don't see him. You would have seen him in earlier shots of the club, but no, just instantly, 30 seconds after a murder is discovered, there's a cop already ready to grab
there's a cop there. So so I was like, was that meant to be a security guard? Because that would make sense.
He had all the drapings of a cop. He even had
He did, but then when it went to the scene where they tried to go to see, the niece tries to go and see her fiance afterwards because he's under arrest. It's a security guard in front of that door, not a cop.
Oh, I didn't pay enough attention on that part.
So that's why I said I was very I thought there's no way there's a cop there because this has just happened. Nobody has called the police. This isn't the kind of club that's going to have police crawling around it anyway.
Right.
Because the clientele would probably leave if the cops were there. But the uniform that the guy who tackled the fiance after the scream and the murders happened, I thought he was dressed like a cop. And it confused me.
I would say suspension of disbelief, but the fact that both of us caught it and saw it out of place, they could have done that one quite a bit better.
Yeah, I mean, maybe they just put someone in the wrong outfit.
Yeah.
When they filmed it, that's very believable. They wouldn't have reshot something like that.
Well, and having security at a place like that, a stereotypical large bouncer kind of guy to keep
security would make sense, yes, but I don't think uniform security would make sense. Yes, probably in a sharp suit, but not security guard plastered all over it.
You would know their security without it being.
Yes, it's like uniform. Secret Service type security, right? They're Secret Service. But they're not like the FBI with their big jackets and big letters on the back. So I found that weird, and that was meant to be the big reveal that he was doing this and calmed our nerves that he wasn't actually cheating on the niece, which is clearly where they're trying to, get your mind set to, and clearly as a way of getting Jessica Fletcher in the door to this club. Right. To me, it was a bad, last week's setup kind of made sense. Cabot Cove sheriff calling in on a friend, although he then finds her advice stupid and doesn't listen anyway. This one was, again, it's suspension of disbelief, but it was pushing the limits to me. And I feel that's only going to get worse as this show goes on.
And again, I start to wonder if I'm an idiot, because I actually kind of felt like the setup was rushed, but in a way that you have to set up the episode. You have to set up the premises of what's going on and why.
But again, I
caring about the niece and whether or not the niece is being cheated on does seem forever relevant. Cheating's obviously, at least in the U.S., a very big concern. Even though in France, which you're French, did you know paternity tests in France are illegal unless it's actually signed off on by a judge?
I did not know that. But yeah, no, I thought, I don't know, it seemed, again, it seems to me like they someone's come up with a script of a murder mystery, and then at some point they said, right, but how do we get Jessica Fletcher into it? And so they add this bit, and it flows okay story-wise, but I'm still kind of like, this is really tenuous at best in my mind.
I think I might have a better suspension because I'm to force a setup to happen for a serialized show like this, I'm pretty forgiving with what's needed.
Yeah, but this is episode 3, and they already feel tacked on to me. Right?
I am hoping that they get better, because there are some shows where the longer it runs, the better writers are on staff.
I have a feeling that there's going to get... I wonder how many more nieces and nephews they're going to be in total by the time this thing is finished.
That I am curious about.
But she's there. She's involved. Obviously, the fiancé is the one who gets arrested, so that gives her a reason to stay involved. Even though she would have stayed involved anyway, because we all know she's a nosy old busybody and would have wanted to know what had happened regardless. But the fiance and the niece does give her another reason to be involved, and I think explains why she then bullies her way into the investigation. And that I quite liked in this episode, the fact that she did bully her way in. She was not invited.
I also like the times that she was playing dumb and let someone completely give over all their information just by playing the old grandmother who's just, she's just living her life. Don't worry about her.
Yes. But
go ahead.
But again, I believe we've seen that before. She will let people talk themselves into a corner.
I like it.
I like it as well, and it honestly, it's one of the easiest ways to get information out of people is by playing dumb.
The scene where she's talking to the fired secretary, administrative assistant.
Yeah, never getting a taxi cab offered by a stranger.
She knew. Well,
I don't care. She didn't know who Jessica Fletcher was. She was at the club the other night. Great, but come on.
I just like the statement at the end where Jessica said, I appreciate someone who knows discretion or what have you after the admin.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was great because she starts by saying, she is a paragon of discretion and knows how to keep secrets. And then she just spills everything.
But she does keep it secret who she got the information from, which half the time, that's the important thing.
And again, it's a way of introducing other concepts. They're trying to introduce red herrings and, to make you think. So what I will say is I think they did the initial setup scene fairly well. And you had 2 clear culprits. And none of them were the person who actually ended up being the murderer.
Correct.
So I think you had, obviously, the fiancé was a clear suspect. Right, we know he needed money. He wanted his money back. He'd obviously
been to be paid.
He wanted to be paid. He obviously had been seen with the gun, and he was your clear. He didn't do it because Jessica Fletcher's on his side, but clear suspect number 1, in my opinion. And then clear suspect number 2 was the girl who got fired.
Really?
Yes. Because there's this weird interaction in the hallway where a guy is meant to go and tell him your wife is here, and she sends him back. Says, no, you can't go to the office.
Good point.
Right? So to me, that made her a clear suspect because perhaps he's already dead at that stage. Right? And that's why you don't want him going back there to find the body. There was a little hint towards the wife, but I think at that stage, there really wasn't much of a hint towards the wife.
The administrative assistant / secretary, though, is the one who catches the nephew-in-law in the act.
No. That's what she would have said, right? And maybe, okay, yes, is later confirmed that for some reason he did pick up the gun and do everything that she said. But it's also until that point a very obvious possible lie, right?
Yeah, but I'm going to have to disagree. Fundamentally speaking, her argument has to hold some weight because the gentleman, the fiance, goes running. He, runs so far he goes over a table. Yes. Now, she could have obviously set him up, but at the bare minimum, he knows he looks profoundly guilty.
Not even
and
set
her
up. I
scream
mean,
makes sense.
but then again, the other thing is, why is she going back into the office at that stage purely to scream at this guy with the gun? It's very suspicious. It's all very suspicious. And I think at that early stage, maybe I just picked too much into that, don't go into the office thing in the hallway. But at that stage, I thought she was the most obvious culprit. At that stage, setting up who turns out to actually be the culprit, which is the drummer comedian, and I'm going to do air quotes around comedian.
Oh my God, his jokes were horrible.
Yeah, even for the time, I don't think they were funny.
I don't sexism.
I don't think that's outdated jokes that were funny at the time. I think they were outdated then. And, Jessica Fletcher does roll her eyes. So I think you're meant to get the idea that, oh my God, what the hell is this? But I also know a lot of people made a lot of good money making jokes like that. So again, maybe not.
It does mention that he's trying to properly get out and get famous.
Yes. But trying to set up the fact that he was, I don't think they tried to set up the fact that he could be a culprit at that stage. I think they were trying to give him the most ironclad alibi, right? Which is, well, he was on stage, so it couldn't possibly be him. Which of course is when I started to suspect him. But that's nothing to do with actually following the logic. That's a very common misdirect in these type of things. But I think the obvious red herring and the one they handled most heavy-handedly was the wife and the second drag queen, the actual, what you're meant to assume is a proper drag queen act.
Right, who's also been trying to buy the rest, or buy the
Who's
club.
been trying to buy the club, yeah. And is obviously having an affair with the wife as well.
For relevance, he was told by the owner that he was going, he just wasn't mad because he wanted to buy the club and couldn't. He had actually been told by the victim that I'm going to sell you the club, and then it just kind of drug it out forever and ever and ever.
Yes, it seemed to be what this guy did for reasons that only he could know.
He liked power. He wanted power people.
Like that I think is the I say it was a red herring because I think that's the one they put the spotlight on the most.
Yes.
Away from Jessica Fletcher. There's that awkward moment with them where obviously she's called him away out of the club to go and have a walk and a talk. Out by the river. And that scene was completely pointless. Other than to try and make you think one of those definitely did it, but we don't know which one it is.
At the bare minimum, both of them had, on the final scene where they're hugging, you're supposed to at least think both of them are suspicious of each other. Now, whether it's one is suspicious that the other's caught onto the murder that they did, or that they're suspicious that the other person did the murder. But that scene was very ham-fisted.
Very heavy-handed, yes.
Yeah.
And immediately, as soon as that scene had ended, to me, neither of those people were possible suspects because it was just. And I honestly hope at some point in the run they play up on this heavy-handedness, and they actually go for, yes, it actually was the butler, kind of storyline.
I hope they actually play around with it on a somewhat regular basis to keep you guessing just a bit.
Yes, so do I. Because so far at the moment, there's always been a heavy-handed misdirect in the first two proper episodes. I'll exclude Sherlock Holmes. But there's been a heavy-handed misdirect in both, and it's been so obvious that they've been heavy-handed misdirects. And I hope that's not always the case, that you can just tell which one is the misdirect. Like that. So at this stage, and then, okay, so we need to go back a little bit. So Jessica Fletcher getting onto the case by basically threatening this
investigator,
detective, lieutenant, I think he was,
He's the head of the murder division, murder investigation.
Basically, if you don't tell me everything I want to know, I'm going to go on public television and badmouth you. What a dick move.
Yeah. It was funny, though.
Funny, yes, but what a dick move. Right? I loved it because, again, it gives a reason for the lieutenant, whatever, to include her in the case and become increasingly exasperated by her. Which I kind of loved their whole kind of chemistry, to be honest, between the two of them. Because clearly he knew she was clever, was getting somewhere, and was working stuff out. But on the other hand, she's clearly getting in the way of his investigation, right? And he's tired. He's been up for 48 hours, and he does not need this interfering old busybody. He
wants to do things by the books and get a conviction.
Yes. And, he's been strong-armed into letting her in on the case. And then she backs up that initial dick move by turning up at this poor guy's apartment.
Right?
Right? What the hell? Like, how did you get that address? I think because she talked to the other cop who just seemed to like her for some reason.
Yes,
she did. Yes. He did say at one point she was kind of good looking. Right?
He did.
And I was like, who does that? Like, I understand you're trying to prove that your niece's fiance is innocent. A guy you've only just met. I get you do it for the niece. You've probably known the niece most of her life. But
part of it I actually also just take as, yes, she's a busybody, but she's also obsessive almost.
Clearly, yes.
So it's a dick move, but it kind of speaks to she sees everything, she notices everything, but she wants to find the.
But what I didn't like about that scene is that the dick move of turning up at your house, his house, unannounced, is what basically finally won that detective over.
Yeah.
And then, he went from being a foil to being an ally. And that didn't really work for me.
That's a fair point.
I thought that was kind of, okay, eventually he has to get on Jessica Fletcher's side. I get that. But that felt way too rushed and out of nowhere. It was almost as bad as the taxi cab driver from Sherlock Holmes being, I'm grumpy. Oh, you fixed my knees or whatever it was.
Yeah.
I'm your best friend for life. Like it it felt rushed. It didn't feel earned. And the other thing I think that really didn't feel earned in this one is the final reveal. So the first time I even became suspicious of the drummer comedian guy is Jessica Fletcher gets lost in the club and ends up in his changing room. And there's this very awkward, reminiscent of, again, from Sherlock Holmes, when the PI saw the statue of blind justice, right? There's this really awkward shot of looking at the sofa, right?
Right.
And you have no idea what it is she's picked up on. She's clearly picked up on something looking at that sofa. I didn't know what it was she picked up on, or was even meant to have picked up on.
So actually, that's the point. She picks up on everything, and I could imagine her going to most people's rooms and doing that. Obviously,
no. It's not the fact that she does it, but it's the fact that the camera points to the sofa,
right,
and is clearly trying to tell you that she's picked up on something. But I have no idea what it was. I'm interested if you managed to pick up on what it was she's meant to have picked up on.
By the end of the episode?
Near the end of the episode, they tell you.
Oh,
But
yeah, no, I didn't know.
that's not the point. It's that at that point, okay, it cuts to the sofa. That there
I knew
seems to be
nothing.
like a weird butt groove in it, and I was like, "Are we meant to be looking at the butt groove? Like, what are we looking at?"
Did someone have sex on this? And that's
we
suspicious.
hadn't seen any other of those sofas,
Nope.
so we couldn't tell it looked any different. Which again, I think if you were doing this in a kind of proper, more subtle way, you would have shown more of those sofas. Now,
We might have seen one in the murdered's office, but it
there must have been one in the murder's office, but I honestly do not remember seeing it.
Right. There's a point at which you have to actually show it enough for the audience to actually see it.
Yeah, and again, I think this goes from
shot.
like maybe they did subtly show it in the victim's office, but then when she goes into this one, there's nothing subtle about that cut at all. It just cuts to an empty sofa, right? And I was just like, okay, why are we looking at the sofa? Like,
even if they did show it more in his office, that still only gives us the two sofas, which just isn't like.
Yes, but then you're starting to, even if you don't know why you're connecting them, you're starting to connect that, okay, so she's noticed something about that sofa, which must have something to do with the sofa in the victim's office, right? Because you've shown us two sofas. I still don't get it, but you've shown us two sofas.
That there's some difference between the two that maybe we could pick up on.
Yeah, and maybe we can sit there and go, oh, okay, yeah, okay. Now they mention that it's by a window, and they do mention that he's the only one with a dressing room with a window. Okay, so that's setting up something. And I picked up on those. I didn't know what the window was going to have to do with it. And okay, maybe if I was smart, I would have picked up that window sofa is going to get faded in the sun. Right? Which is what you're meant to pick up on. Right? Is that it's faded. The other weird one, but this one I did pick up on because it's been used to death, is obviously there's a bird in the victim's office. There are feathers, a feather, which is what kind of made this less believable to me, found in the victim's office. And there's also a big scene of trying to, look, if he'd been shot before the guy went on with the drums, because they were trying to argue that the drums is what covered the sound of the gunshot.
Right.
So therefore, the shots only could have happened during the time when the fiance could have done it. Right? And that was basically the only thing. Well, obviously the print on the gun, because he for some reason picked up the gun when he went in after he was dead. And
I did like the strong arming on the, what was it, nitric acid on
the GSR test. Yes.
Yeah.
That was good. And it starts to indicate that there is now some scientific forensic stuff going on in the police world.
Yeah.
Whereas in the other episodes, there's really been none of that. It's just been more, people stomping around. So, yeah. Where was I? What were we talking about?
We saw the feather on the victim.
Oh, yeah, the feather. And then they were trying to argue, how could someone have shot him beforehand? So the fact that they were trying to point towards the poor man's silencer of a pillow, I picked up on.
And again, I start to wonder if I'm just stupid.
Right. Well, not really, because at no point, at least that I could tell, at no point had they shown pillows on the sofas. There was only one feather. Because I don't think they ever really said how long he had been dead, but we know it hadn't been that long because we saw him just before.
Well, and we do establish, the main thing she does establish is that the coroner's report doesn't actually indicate the time of death within the 15 minutes. It has to have been more away from that.
Yes.
So
it opens the doubt, but what I'm trying to say is I still think that he was probably only murdered within 15 minutes outside of that 15-minute window. Right? Because we see him around. So we know he hasn't been dead for hours. Right? Because he greets Jessica Fletcher and the niece, sits them at the table. He goes back to the office, and I'm assuming what we're seeing from when they're sat at the table is in real time or as close to, right? So
I did not feel like there was any major time skips once they sat down at the table.
Right. So he hasn't been dead for hours. So the timeline of events must be that the drummer, while the first drag queen is on, because that's the act we first see when we go in, right? Yes.
Right.
Yes. Has murdered the guy during that act. While Jessica Fletcher and the niece have been there. I'm pretty sure if you shot someone through a feather-filled pillow, there would be a shit ton of feathers.
So, what actually annoyed me when she said the pillow, and that it's the poor man's silencer, is they had done all that experimentation there in the office. They make a whole show of it to establish that the drumming wouldn't have drowned it out. Why didn't they also... And they had the gun. They were literally shooting a gun in the building as proof that the sound level. Why would you not also then just triple check that those pillows, because you obviously think it's an identical match to the pillow that's now there. Why would you not also then try shooting through that pillow? Because I'm sorry, the pillows they used I don't think would work at all as a silencer.
No, I don't think they would have worked with a silencer. I think they would have rained with feathers. I honestly don't believe so okay, we do not know the distance between the stage and that office. I don't think it's ever really disclosed, but it seems to be at the end of the hallway, wherever that is. It's a busy club.
Yep.
There would have been music playing anyway for the drag queen act, one would imagine. And she was doing a joke through loudspeakers. It's all microphoned up. I would argue there's a good chance you wouldn't hear a gunshot in there anyway, depending on the type of gun.
I think it's busy enough. So I think it'd have to be a subsonic round to not be heard in that office. Because yes, it's busy, but it's also busy in the back end. He's back there. But for a show like that, you've got a lot of... The drag queens have to dress up, get their makeup on. They're going to be in that same back area. We've got the secretary or administrative assistant who goes back there.
Okay. I will understand it from that, but they were purely trying to show it from you wouldn't have heard it from the audience chamber.
Fair.
The audience wouldn't have heard it. Yes, I can see your argument there 100%. And honestly, it would have been a coin toss as if you would have heard it anyway. I don't believe the drumming just by itself would have drowned it out any more than anything else going on.
Well,
that night.
One of the things that immediately struck or stuck out to me when they were trying to say it was the drummer who it was during his act, because that's the only act that would have been loud enough to drown it out.
Yes, yeah.
Most of his set was him doing the jokes, and only about 2 seconds between each one of doing the ba-dum-tsh. So
yes, but he was always on the drum, right? Even the entire act, he's always doing something with the drum.
Most of it's not enough.
But it's very quiet because you hear him, right? Yes, I didn't understand that whole argument, because if they wanted to do that test, they would have had to have that club full of people chatting, laughing,
that too,
being loud, right? The whole experiment. I understand that it's for the audience. It's to prove to us that the fiance definitely didn't do it, right? Well, actually, no. At that point, they're trying to prove that it's the only time he could have done it,
right?
And to give Jessica Fletcher, to work out what's going on. But it didn't make a lot of sense. It was odd that they did that kind of science while also comparing it to a gunshot residue test. Like the two kind of, one is highly forensic and one is highly speculative, if that makes sense. I thought it felt really, really odd.
Yeah, the little radio she pulls out to try and be a comparison to the busy club and the drums doesn't match, but my thing was, how did the shooter time it well enough for it to be during when he was actually playing the drums?
Yes.
Because you're going to hear some of it in those back offices, but you're not going to have speakers back there, so you're not going to actually know when he's finished each joke very well.
Well,
and it kind of is framed as a murder, at least to some extent.
I will say, in some of those clubs, you most definitely would have a speaker back there.
Really? Okay.
Yes, they may not have had it turned on, but yes, there are a lot of them who will listen to the show from the back office. I don't think they did in this case, and even if they did, it was never shown that they had a speaker that they listened to the show. But yes, no, a lot of people in the back office will have a speaker to the floor, so you can overhear it in the background. That's just experience on my on my side. But no, I agree with you. So that felt odd, and then I honestly feel the rush towards the drummer did it, I don't think was deserved at all.
Yeah.
Right. I honestly believe it kind of came out of nowhere. We knew he had a reason to do it. They then do so the time I knew it was him was when they did the second murder attempt and he dies off the stage and hurts his neck.
And again, I wonder if I'm stupid.
Right. That is when, because obviously they're trying to say they were trying to murder Jessica Fletcher. They were trying to wind it in as part of the heavy-fisted, the wife or the boyfriend did it.
Mm-hmm.
And you were trying, the link you were meant to make with that is they said they needed to take care of Jessica Fletcher because she's a busybody, she's going to work it out. And then very next scene, I think it was, is there's this murder attempt. So
Yes.
they're trying to make you put that together with those two and go, oh, they definitely did it. That's just more proof of their guilt. In my part, it was his reaction. It was way over the top. And he just kind of with the dive, because he must have known it was coming before he dove off. Right. And it didn't fit well with me. That's kind of when I started to go with the drama, but not because the story is leading me that way, but because I saw it was trying to lead me and I kind of went in the opposite direction. Right. You then do the weird scene in the hospital.
Yes.
One, if your hospital gown is pulled up that high, put your blankets on. Come on, common decency now. But two, they're in the hospital. They're toasting with champagne because the contract was only with the guy rather than the club. It was only with the victim rather than the club. So the fact that he's now dead was actually the only way. And in fact, the drummer is the only one who really benefits from the murder.
And
directly from the murder.
The wife and cheated lover person.
The wife takes over the club.
Right.
But you don't know if she particularly wanted to anyway. And then obviously the other guy who was going to buy the club, well, you don't know what's going to happen there because the wife has got the club and you have no idea. You're not, well, at least I wasn't led to believe towards the end you are, because they show them quite happy because they attended the wedding. And that they actually are in a loving relationship together, the boyfriend and the wife, with the affair. But after that scene when they were kind of outside and being suspicious of each other, to me, there was no real indication that he was going to get what he wanted by murdering the husband, if that makes sense.
Right. Well, being able to,
and in fact, the more obvious story beat is that, but again, they kind of confirmed that one didn't know if the other had done it or not.
right.
The more obvious story beat there would have been that the wife had been playing him to shoot the guy, and then he didn't get the club anyway because she took it. But they were never going to do that. So to me, it only left him. It only left the drummer and therefore the manager, because he's obviously going to get a cut of whatever the contract is, as your viable suspects. To me, anyway.
Again, every bit with him from the diving part forward definitely made me more and more against him.
And it was weird because they'd obviously tried to build up his, at the start they built up a stone alibi for him. He couldn't have done it because it could only have happened while he was on stage, right? And then they essentially ignored him for a third of the episode.
Yep.
To only then come back and the spotlight is on him. And as soon as it goes on him, it never leaves him.
Right.
Right. And it just felt really odd. Honestly. Really, really odd. And I don't believe this is one you could have worked out beforehand. Before it's explained. I'm trying to think. Is there does she do another she does a eureka moment, but I can't remember how she gets there.
So there's two eureka moments. There's she's trying to go to bed because she's been awake for 48 hours. She goes to what I assume is her apartment and tries to shut out the noise using her pillows.
Yes.
And that's how she realizes.
Was the pillow. Yeah.
And the other is when she drops the sandbag on the lieutenant, and he moves out of the way.
That's right. Yes, it was the sandbag one. But the pillow one. I actually think in many ways the pillow one was quite clever because it could have meant so many different things. And
when she covered
I could only imagine, yes, and I can only imagine that there was a ad break there. Right.
To me, I did figure when she did the pillows, that's when I finally remembered that. Oh yeah, pillows are the poor man's silencer.
There was the pillow thing. There was obviously they pointed out the feather, but there's also the fact that a lot of this was about noise, right?
Also,
so the fact that she's covering her head. I think it was a very good. There is a way of silencing the noise. Yes. Oh,
good point.
So I think that was a fairly good eureka moment
because she realized it had been about the noise or lack thereof the whole time.
Or lack thereof the whole time. But it then goes into this fact that there are apparently many, many pillows that everybody has access to in this club, which we've never been told before.
Yeah.
We had no idea there were pillows. One feather to me does not. I mean, I've never shot a gun through a pillow, for a feather-filled pillow, so I have no idea how many feathers it would leave behind.
As a citizen of the U.S., with a gun, you would have far more of the pillow discarded around the room than just a feather, especially if you're using it to silence the gun.
And he only had between 5 to 10 minutes to clean it up. Right.
Well, and then leave the gun on the floor for some reason. Why?
Yeah, leaving the gun on the because the other guy had to pick it up. Like that purely seemed to be for plot convenience. Rather than the other argument is that maybe he had nowhere else he could have put it because he had to go straight from the shooting to the stage. So where else is he going to put the gun? Alibi. There doesn't seem to be anywhere obvious to throw it. If he had gone back to his dressing room, he had the window, so it would have made sense to just kind of toss it outside and then try and find it later and move it away, right?
It's not that hard to conceal a pistol on your person.
Yeah, but he didn't get off stage before the police were there.
Fair.
Right? So
yeah, but they wouldn't have searched his person because he was out on the floor when the murder happened with an obvious suspect already there.
Would they not have done a quick search?
Not here.
I feel like in the UK they probably would have done a search of everyone looking for a murder weapon if they hadn't already found it. The fact that they'd already had it is different. But if they hadn't already had it, I feel like they would have searched people looking for the murder weapon.
Actually, yeah, because if it wasn't on the guy they assumed shot her, because they would have strip searched him.
Yeah. It's got to be somewhere. And I don't think they would have let people out of the place being able to possibly conceal the murder weapon out or the evidence out. But that we don't know the answer to that question.
I have a question for you.
Yes.
Do you think that style of pillow would have been a feather/down pillow?
No, I don't.
Yeah, that annoyed me too, because I was like, this is
Um,
not what a feather pillow looks like.
No, and it would have had hardly any feathers in it, and it wouldn't have silenced the gun one iota, which was another problem to me. But then, because and again, this is the thing. Maybe I would have to go back, and maybe they did do a very subtle setup shot here with the sofa in the victim's office with no pillow on it. Maybe that very subtle shot exists, right? When they first find the victim, because we know it's not the pillow from his room he uses as the silencer. It's the pillow that's in the victim's office that he uses, which is then destroyed. We don't know what he does with the remnants of it. They're not around the office. We've already speculated that he had no time to go and dump it anywhere else because he didn't have time to dump the gun.
Right.
So where's the rest of the pillow? Who knows, right? And then at a later date, he must have moved the pillow from his room into the victim's office. For some reason that makes absolutely no sense to me. I don't follow the logic.
But I kind of get the... having the pillow be the sun-faded pillow works really well for that particular hand. Why would he go out of his way to replace one pillow in the other person's office with the pillow that was in his office when everyone is supposed to have an equal number of pillows in their office? Then would make him look weird for, why are you missing a pillow? So that bit...
Yeah, exactly. It doesn't make any sense.
It's obviously important enough that every room has the two pillows or what have you, so he moves his somewhere else. But now you've literally just put the spotlight on yourself because now you're missing a pillow.
Yes. So I don't understand why he would have moved the pillow. Yes, it makes sense for the plot and for the reason Jessica Fletcher can pin it on him. And this for this episode is the thing that got to me the most. I do not know why he confessed. They had nothing. Absolutely nothing on him whatsoever.
In the U.S., the style of the U.S. legal system, he wouldn't have confessed. He would, but at that point, with the lieutenant being on Jessica Fletcher's side, they would have taken him. They would have interrogated him for 12 hours until he did confess.
No,
but
good lawyer would have got him out. Would have got him out of there. Again, I don't know what the rules were for lawyers and getting people out in the 80s. Well, now, a good lawyer would have got him out of that room because they would not have filed charges based on what Jessica Fletcher had said. There was nowhere near enough to file charges against him on that. That was all hearsay and terrible hearsay at that. A good lawyer would have got him out of the office before a cop could have even talked to him, because without charges, you can't keep him anymore. That's the rules now.
Only if he actually reached out to the lawyer first.
Yeah, but why wouldn't he?
I guess his agent would.
Yeah, I mean, he would have reached out to his agent would have been all over this to try and keep the contract alive. The conclusion to this episode, I did not feel was earned at all.
Right. I enjoyed what Jessica did, but the whole rest of it...
Yes, I enjoyed what Jessica did. It was very fun. I enjoyed her interaction with the lieutenant, and honestly, if they end up in San Francisco again, I hope he makes a reappearance. Because I very much enjoyed their dynamic. It does raise the question for me, though. Jessica Fletcher seems to get very cozy with a man in every episode. Right? How much are we meant to read into this? And it wouldn't be to shame anybody. You know, she's single. The lieutenant was single. If they just wanted to have a quick knock you boot session, there's no reason why they can't. But I find it interesting.
Late 80s, they're going to imply relationship. They will never imply sex.
Yes. But no, I so far I found that kind of interesting. In every episode, there has been someone like in Deadly Lady in the second episode. Okay, we thought it was more brother-sister type relationship between her and Ethan. more
Yeah,
than
but
anything else, but
the guy who was murdered,
the guy who
was
was
a weird.
murdered, she was getting very close to him, which was odd. And then, in this one, and then there's a very rushed scene at the end where the niece actually does get married.
I did not like any of that scene.
Again,
It felt like an unfulfilling conclusion.
An unfulfilling conclusion after an already unfulfilling conclusion. To me,
I can live with an unfulfilling conclusion on the murder. You don't really have to follow up too much with you could have just said, "Oh, we're planning our wedding on this. We've postponed it.
Yeah.
Here's the new date. Come back then, Jessica." And just.
I'd rather so what I mean. That whole scene was maybe 2-3 minutes long. The wedding at the end, right? I would have rather they spent those 2-3 minutes putting more time into making us suspect the drummer boy. Right.
He wasn't little, though. I did just rewatch through the scene, just quickly scrubbing through. There's maybe a second where you see a red couch in the guy's, in the murdered's office.
Yep.
No, it's kind of on scene, but it's not there.
I debate whether or not. Because I think with Deadly Lady, we argued that the actual. The murder itself made sense, but the plot to kick it all off was ridiculous. This one, I think how they got to where they got, to me, it felt completely undeserved and much more paint by numbers than Deadly Lady. And as much as I enjoyed the episode, I was disappointed with this one.
It felt like they tried to give everyone except for the drummer a happy ending with that last scene, because you get the contract guy. What's he called? The representative? No,
the manager.
Yes, the manager. They give him a happy ending because and then we have the wife and the guy she was cheating with happily there at the meeting.
Happily there. Yep.
And then obviously you have the happiness of not only is the couple married, but also now he has a job in his acting. It's just why? Yeah. Why do we actually properly care? Because a lot of these people weren't exactly great people throughout the episode. We don't actually think they're good people per se, and we try to shove a happy ending in 2 minutes for all of them. It's
only one, like if I'm writing Murder, She Wrote, the only one I would be interested in is the fact that now we have a reason for Jessica Fletcher to end up in Hollywood at some point. Because the niece and the nephew-in-law are now in Hollywood.
They could still have him get a job at a future point because they were.
Of course you could, because you're just going to say it at the start of the episode anyway, right? Because no one is going to remember and recall back to this episode. But as a writer, that is a hook that I can use, right? Which is there, and I can point you back to when I put it in, rather than the kind of modern Disney Star Wars approach, which is, no, it was there. Oh, can you show me when? No.
We have, it's already established he wants to be an actor. That's the whole reason he's here.
Yes.
They're going to get married.
The door's now open to Hollywood.
Yes, but that door stays open with him staying in San Francisco.
Yeah, okay. I think the interesting thing will be is if the next episode ends up in Hollywood, I think you can probably argue that's probably why they did that scene.
If the next episode ends up in Hollywood, we have to change our name. We cannot be the Cabot Cove Chaps. And, 3 or 4 out of the first 4 episodes aren't even in Cabot Cove.
I very much doubt most of the murders take place in Cabot Cove.
I'm going to be sad if they don't. I feel like the reoccurring characters can kind of really make a show. I love Jessica. Thus far,
yes.
Most every bit she's in.
Yes. Oh, Jessica Fletcher is fantastic. Angela Lansbury as Jessica Fletcher is absolutely fantastic. And this, she somehow toes the line of she is an annoying busybody, yet somehow I don't mind. Right. Whereas probably in real life I would.
If it was exactly as Angela Lansbury portrays, you would. I feel like she'd be a person you want to dislike, but God damn it, you can't.
Probably couldn't, yeah, because she seems incredibly friendly. She's willing to go all out to help people. Like, there's just something nice about her. She's clearly incredibly clever. She clearly has this memory and attention for detail, which is kind of bewildering.
Right.
We've got the relationship with her that I feel Dr. Watson has with Sherlock Holmes. Like, in many ways, I feel we are the Dr. Watson when you're watching Murder, She Wrote. Sherlock Holmes is an unlikable twat, right?
Oh, God, yes.
But Dr. Watson sees something and is genuinely friends with Sherlock Holmes somehow, right? And I feel that's kind of what, maybe Jessica Fletcher is Sherlock Holmes and Dr. Watson rolled into one.
I think so, because Sherlock doesn't give respect or time of day to anyone but Watson, but Jessica actually listens to and talks to pretty much everyone, and doesn't. She doesn't treat him as less than, but she does demand that she has her own place and her own input. Yes. She's not willing to be silenced, but she's also willing to be a friend.
Yes, yeah, but I do. I find that fine line that she walks interesting, and I do wonder. And even though I said with the lieutenant, it didn't really make sense that. Yeah. She does the dick move, she turns up at his apartment, and that's when he finally is won over. The other side of me is that I kind of get it. Like I do, she's showing some I want to say balls, but
chutzpah.
She is showing, and but yeah, I was disappointed in this episode. Like, I thought the my brain is just blue screened.
The murder being on the drummer and him being so small in the first third or first two-thirds almost.
I think the improvements they made from the pilot to Deadly Lady were fantastic.
Yes.
Right? Still a little rough around the edges, but could clearly show how you could do a fairly decent, okay, there's still a lot of questions to be asked, but a fairly decent mystery in a 45-minute time slot. Right? This one shows me how you don't do that. Like, to me, everything about this is a masterclass, and if you're trying to do a 45-minute mystery, don't do this.
Yeah.
Right?
There were scenes that I thought were well done, which was like her in the cab with the administrative assistant getting all the information.
Fantastic.
We aren't given a good reason why the wife wants her fired either.
Yeah, she was having an affair with the boss.
Was she? Okay.
Yes.
I didn't catch that part then.
Yes, she was sleeping with the boss. Which was another reason why I thought she was meant to be the early suspect.
Right, okay.
And the one that kind of set up early on, but yeah, kind of just gave up on as soon as she was fired. Because even her being fired doesn't mean she didn't do it.
Right.
But, as soon as she was fired, she gave all the information to Jessica, and then she was basically done for the episode, right?
I don't think we see her again. We might see her at the wedding.
Is she at the wedding? Yeah, I don't know.
That's it. That's the only place she could have been. And again, none of that made sense.
Yeah, none of that made sense whatsoever. So, yeah, Deadly Lady still sits as my top episode of Murder, She Wrote we've watched so far.
I liked Jessica's interactions with everyone. The rest of the episode did feel...
Yeah.
I guess that's the thing we're going to keep coming back for, is Angela Lansbury.
You're coming back for Angela Lansbury, yes. And at some point, hopefully, they will put a decent mystery story in there as well from start to finish.
I want good reoccurring characters. I don't know why I want it, but I want good reoccurring characters. That's part of the thing where if we're going to be in San Francisco regularly, cool, let me keep the niece and the nephew.
Yeah, if she sets up a bunch of different people in different places and we get to see them every now and again, yeah, like that works, right? Like I said, I would love to see that detective again. I thought he was brilliant, and I thought their chemistry was fantastic.
Yeah.
I want to see Ethan from Cabot Cove again. I definitely want to see the sheriff from Cabot Cove again because he was such a crotchety old man. And I love the difference between this bubbly old woman.
Busybody.
It feels wrong to say, but she's bubbly. She's full of life. She's looking for adventure. And you've got this miserable old man sheriff He just wants everybody to shut up and go away. I loved that mix, and I want to see more of that, right? And then, with the San Francisco detective, you kind of got this, essentially a hippie who was a detective, who I thought was absolutely brilliant. I want to see more of that.
I don't get hippie, but I did enjoy their interactions.
Well, I say hippie because he had the Save the Whales
oh, yes,
robe on when he was in his apartment. Like,
Okay.
I think you're meant to get San Francisco hippie from him a little bit, but
but that was between that, the drag queen, and the kissing. Those three definitely made me feel like they're definitely trying to make social commentary, at least specifically with this episode.
Yes, and I just wonder if most of it's going over our heads because of when we're watching it. Right. Although I will say I've watched much older shows than this, like Quincy, and you can tell where the social commentary is.
Yeah, it feels like there's social commentary, and we're just it's not actually being communicated. Like, they're trying to give social commentary, and
I wonder if it's because they're giving social commentary in a way that we, and I mean us two specifically, we just kind of agree with. So we're just kind of not seeing it, if that makes sense. Right? They're trying to say that drag queens are acceptable, and to my mind, well, yeah, of course they are. I don't really understand how that would be a question. Like,
yeah, but we're not made to like any of the drag queens.
No, but they also weren't the insidious murderers, which is where probably a lot of people would have thought a drag queen episode was going.
Really?
Probably.
See, I just would have pictured them being to me, they'd fall into the stereotype of obviously they're a bad person, obviously they're not good for society. If we're thinking the late 1980s,
not even the late 1980s, but yes,
exactly. But they're not actually responsible. Would be, you'd think as the audience, oh, well, they're the murderer, but the play would be, well, no, they're actually just an asshole. They're also, they're just a pervert.
But I do think, and again, I can't attest to this because look, this is broadcast in 1984. I was 1 year old, and in Wales, so I have no idea what the social barometer was in America at this time.
You're in Wales,
but yeah, I was born in Wales. I was in Wales.
Guess that's all I have to say for them.
About a year and a bit. That's right. He that's exactly how you spell that, Wales. What was interesting is when they went to the restaurant, there was a massive Welsh flag.
Really? I did not catch that.
Because it was meant to be a British restaurant, so there were a couple of British flags, and then there was the big Welsh dragon as well. But which just made me chuckle when I saw it. But yeah, oh, sorry. Yes.
No. Okay, I thought we established it was 1986, but no, I'm just stupid again. You are right. 84.
Yeah, it's 84. Yeah.
I'm just going to quit being wrong by not talking.
Yeah, these are essentially almost 40-year-old episodes we're watching.
Oh shit.
just to give you an idea of how old it is. And again, to me it didn't feel that dated.
No.
Particularly
that social
the social commentary which is going over my head. Obviously, it looks like an old TV show, but
it being that is actually it being an older TV show, and I did see again the red couch, but with programming this old, with the recording being this lackluster, you're not going to pick that out. It's simply not going to be a striking thing on the TV, and it's going to be too small and not in
which is why when I think they again when she goes into the drummer's dressing room for the first time by accident, and there's just that weird shot of the sofa. It feels so odd. But they're trying to draw your attention to something, but you have no idea what it can be.
Do you think she went into his office by mistake? Because I think she did that.
No, I think she did that on purpose, yes. Yeah. And again, if it'd been interesting if they'd gone into every office, okay, you're not going to do this in 45 minutes, into every dressing room and seen every sofa, and then you can go, well, his is different. That's probably important. right?
She could have peeked into one and had a short conversation in another, because she
Yes.
peeked into an empty one and a short conversation.
Because even
with
the thing I
someone
think about
completely
the
unrelated.
reveal about everybody having that sofa and that pillows is very late on, right?
Yes, it's late. It doesn't. We're given none of the information
Yes.
that is in everyone's office. It's
Yes.
simply not communicated.
And I think that to me is one of the reasons why I didn't particularly enjoy the mystery. Like I said, I enjoyed the episode very much, but I definitely preferred last week's.
Yes.
Even though last week's had its own problems as well.
The mystery was more fun than the other one, even if some of the setup made absolutely zero sense.
Yeah, the setup made zero sense whatsoever, but the mystery was there for you to unravel from the start, really, which I liked. But yeah, okay, this is turning into our longest. Do you know every episode is getting longer?
Yeah, I looked at the clock earlier to see what time it was and realized we've been going for. Ooh, fuck.
Yeah, every episode we do is getting longer, and I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing. But yes, that's all we've got to say about the episode, I think. I don't think we really have to have a kind of wind down chat this week, I guess. I guess that can save us a few minutes.
Yeah, fuck off. Episode's over.
No! That's not how we're ending. When Trentner's listening to this and just suddenly gets to fuck off, no! Our one loyal fan.
I think everyone knows I'm full of enough shit that I don't mean that. But, fair point.
Oh dear. And yes, I still do not have this up in the audio only stuff. I'll try and get to that. Honestly, it probably won't be until the new year. Life is just going crazy right now.
I am curious what character I'll be this time.
Oh, the what image I've given you?
Yes. I am excited to see it.
I think it's a good one this week.
Good.
Next week's I'm very pleased with. Very pleased. This week's I like, but next week's chef's kiss. Chef's kiss. And that's a tease for hopefully we'll be doing one next week. Like I say, we are getting into the festive period, so recording times may be harder and harder to get to.
That's a you problem.
It really isn't.
I'm here.
I'm free. But yes, hopefully you all enjoyed this episode. Say goodbye night.
Hello. Happy Monday.
You need fresh material, man. Fresh material.
Have you ever heard the phrase beating a dead horse? I make sure they're glue.
And on that lovely image, thanks for watching, and we'll see you again, maybe. Bye. Maybe they'll do an episode in the horse glue factory, and we can have a romp through that. Till the next one, bye for now.
Boy.